Welcome back to Light the Fuse, the only Mission Impossible podcast that's just out here living. You know what I mean?
You're really running out of ideas, aren't you?
I'm running out of stuff.
We are. We're out here living.
We're living.
Yeah.
We're living. We're enjoying we're in the Christmas spirit.
We're living the dream.
We're living the dream.
The Christmas dream.
Yeah. Of talking about Mission Impossible, no matter the season, no matter the climate.
Yes.
It's a little chilly. Is this from the New Bev? This is sweatshirt?
No, I got this online.
Okay.
It's a Die Hard sweatshirt that says, "Now I have a machine gun, ho, ho, ho."
Classic.
In the Christmas spirit.
Did you get the Christmas Eve ticks?
No, they sold out. And I don't think I can do the earlier show because I have a small child. So, I know, I'm really bummed.
Sorry.
They're doing a showing of it, though, at the Arrow in 35, and I might go to that. It's like a week earlier.
Okay.
So that might be a little easier. That's
Yeah.
not on Christmas Eve.
Right.
When I have a family.
Right.
But I'm Charles, by the way.
And this is Drew, and we're back. We got a great new episode. We're here to talk about Jack Howard's episode, part 1.
Yes. Jack was awesome.
He was awesome. He is a jack of all trades. No pun intended.
He is. It's cool. I want to listen to that podcast that he does.
Yes, he has a podcast. He has YouTube videos. He was out here making deals.
It's really smart, his thoughts on the franchise and everything. So I think you'll really like what he has to say.
Yes, he hosts a show with Mark Kermode, which we talk about. I'm a big fan of Mark Kermode.
Yeah.
Yeah, what else did we talk about in this episode that you wanted to kind of set up?
Well, we asked him, I think, and then he turned the question back on us, was how many times we saw Fallout in theaters, and I didn't know the answer then. Mm-hmm. But I did look it up since then, and it was 6 times.
I think you saw it more than I did. I think I probably saw it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I saw it 4 times in the initial run. Mm-hmm. And then I saw it with that 3D screening that you couldn't make it to.
Right.
That was around Thanksgiving or Christmas, and that's when I met McCory.
Right.
And then together we went to the 35mm at the Vista just this year.
Yeah. The one I wanted to go to was the 40X, and I just beat myself up every day for not going.
Yeah, so that's the thing where they like put snow in the crowd if there's snow and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
they shake the
seats.
chair, squirt water at you, stuff like that.
Yeah, we missed it.
Yeah.
We missed it.
That's the closest we'll come to a Mission Impossible theme park attraction, I feel like, for a little while.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's all we got to say.
All right.
I think you'll like this interview. Enjoy.
Yeah, and we'll be back afterwards to wrap things up. We're here with Jack Howard today.
Hello.
I just saw in your bio you've been on the Mark Kermode show.
Yeah, I do a podcast with him.
Really?
Yeah. Me and Mark Kermode do a podcast called Kermode on Film. Sometimes he'll do it with his live show, and sometimes he'll do stuff solo. But one of the main things that happens on that podcast is that we do a head-to-head together. So we'll see a new film, or we'll talk about a classic film, or just a one that we feel like discussing, and we'll debate about it. And usually it's us having a difference in generation and just butting heads about something. So yeah, like we do.
You know Mark Kermode?
No, I was gonna say, excuse my ignorance. Who is this?
I was very into him for a while. He's a very funny kind of persnickety British film journalist.
Oh, it's such an interesting way of like describing Mark.
And documentarian too.
Yeah, he's fantastic. You
might have actually seen his Blade Runner documentary. He's done one on Alien, I think, right?
Yeah, he's done several. He's probably the most well-known film critic in the UK. And then I'm me, and for some reason he wants to do a podcast with me.
That's awesome.
We've known each other for a few years. Like the reason why we met was because his son was a fan of my YouTube stuff, because I'm also in a comedy duo on YouTube called Jack and Dean, and his son was a fan, and we used to work at Radio 1 for the BBC, and he messaged me out of nowhere. Kermode did, and was like, he slid into my DMs. Wow. And was like, "Hi, Mark Kermode here. Would I be able to bring my son round to the BBC? I want to look like a cool dad," that sort of thing. He like denies this now, but I've got evidence. I was like, "Yeah, of course you can, Mark Kermode. Fine." And then we just kept seeing each other occasionally at screenings. We saw Star Wars Force Awakens together with his kid as well, and then we kept going to the pub after those screenings and talking about stuff. And then eventually he was like, "We should make a show together." And I was like, "He's being pedantic. There's no fucking way he's going to make a show with me." And then it happened, and I'm still kind of pinching myself. We've been doing it just over a year now.
I have a new life goal. Should we go over to London? We have a very long list of things to do.
When we get to London.
Yes, but now us being on your Komodo, or at least me being
Yeah.
on your Komodo, I want to hear him describe something as a little Spandau ballet, which is what he describes things as sometimes. I would love to, be there for that.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
Sometimes when I'm doing it with him, like he's so experienced and intelligent and just brilliant at this that I sometimes forget I'm on the podcast with him, and so I'm just watching him talk and then being like, oh, I actually need to respond at some point.
Is your dynamic like his radio co-host? Who's that, Mayo, right?
Mayo. Yeah, Simon Mayo is his radio co-host. Our dynamic is a little different. I will speak up a lot more.
Yeah, Mayo's very kind of calm. And,
Mayo sort of just lets him go, and then occasionally will interject, which is great. Like that duo has been famous for several years now, but I just can't keep my mouth shut sometimes. If he says something, I'm like, I don't agree with that. And what's nice is that sometimes I'll see that I've gotten through to him, and he'll hear an opinion that he hasn't heard before, or like a different way of looking at something, and he'll consider it properly, and it's nice to have that effect on him, because I'm still smart Kermode and he knows everything there is to know about cinema.
Right.
So if I can show him a different perspective of something, I feel very I don't know, it makes me feel very good to be able to do that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Have you guys talked about any Mission Impossible movies?
We haven't yet, no.
Okay.
So maybe you should come to London.
That's when we come on.
When 7 and 8 comes over, we'll cross collaborate.
Yeah, and then we can all go to the Mamma Mia dinner experience or whatever that is.
Oh my gosh, yes, Mamma Mia the party. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't. What's that?
We're big Mamma Mia fans.
You're going to start a Mamma Mia podcast. That's what this
next.
is slowly transitioning into.
My running partner Seth, I have to give him credit. He texted this to me last night. There is a Mamma Mia show that started in Sweden. It's a restaurant experience where they, at first when he sent it to me, he was like, I think this is like they do Mamma Mia in the restaurant, but it's not that. It's actually a story that's behind the scenes, the making of the movie.
Right.
And while they're making
even
the movie,
the Broadway
while they're making the movie, there's a romance that happens. I don't know, but it's some kind of restaurant experience.
That is
where they have the sets
specific.
inside, you're inside the set of the Greek, the Greek whatever the rest that.
Oh, the restaurant that she sets up.
Yeah, the hotel that they're setting up and then it's coming to London. And now they're talking about maybe going to New York, but it's called Mamma Mia the Party, I think.
Wow.
So.
Are they paying you? Are they paying you to say this?
Yeah, no, but we're big ABBA fans.
I mean, I would go to that just out of
go.
complete curiosity.
Yeah.
That just sounds so bizarre.
And also, how long could it really be? That's the other thing.
There's a little YouTube trailer. I sent it to you. Did you watch it? Yeah, you can see that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
you're eating dinner
out.
and they just walk around and sing around you and have a
Yeah, some
romance.
kebab and yeah.
I would say it's a 5-course Greek meal.
I mean, that's the only reason to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not sure where we.
I can't believe we kicked off on Mamma Mia.
Wait, maybe you're a filmmaker. I mean,
I am. Yes.
Introduce yourself a little bit more.
Okay, so my name's Jack Howard, and I'm a filmmaker and a comedian, I suppose. And I've been part of a comedy duo for about 10 years called Jack and Dean, and we make comedy sketches. We've made a comedy series that ran for 2 seasons called Jack and Dean of All Trades. I've directed a couple of music videos. I do a lot of editing for people, and at the moment I'm just trying to break through into the other part of the industry that ignores me at the moment. Yeah, it's a difficult transition to go from I'm a director, but I've picked myself to direct all the things, to then allowing somebody else to go, yeah, I think you should do this job now. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment in the transitional period. But I'm still making stuff on YouTube as well. I still very much enjoy it because it's I have all the control in the world to be able to do whatever I want. I answer to nobody, and there's an audience there that wants to see it. So I'm very, very blessed, and I'm very appreciative of all of it. I just think I want to try and move on to do bigger and better stuff, tell bigger stories, all of us crave. That's what we all want to do.
Yeah. And you're in LA for a short amount of time, and
I am.
You've chosen an hour of your life to give up to this podcast. So we thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and I think we because when Fallout came out, you were tweeting a lot about Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
So we've been talking to you for a while, trying to get you on the show.
I've been wanting to come on the show for so long, just because I think I've tore the ear off every single person that I know in real life about Mission Impossible. So to just be in the room with 2 other avid fans of the movies. Like, I feel like I can just let myself go a little bit.
Yes.
I can just,
You're
I
safe
can really
here.
be myself.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a safe space.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Avid fans and ABBA fans.
Yeah, if you want to talk about ABBA, we can do that
Yeah.
too. Maybe
We'll
a
save
bonus
that.
episode for Patreon.
Yes.
I don't think I'll be here, but I think I'll let myself out.
So you were saying that Rogue Nation is really your favorite.
I think it is, yeah. So when I saw Rogue Nation, I was like a fan of Mission Impossible. I'd seen all of them except for 2, and that's still the case.
Really?
I haven't watched 2 all the
Wow.
way through. I just can't do it. I tried watching 2 several times and have been like, I just don't need this, and I don't think I'm gonna get anything out of it. But like, I loved 3. That was one that I think it was the first one I ever saw. So how old are you guys?
Do we want
Do we want to say?
that?
We're 36.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm 27. So
Okay.
I like, you know, there's a decent
There's a
age
gap,
gap.
yeah.
So I missed Mission Impossible in the 90s. I wasn't old enough for it yet.
Right.
So then when J.J. Abrams brought it back, that's when I saw it and was like, whoa, what's this? And then went and watched the first one again. So I was aware of it. I liked it. But then when Rogue Nation came out, I was like, whoa, like blown away by how fantastic it was, and then instantly became a Macquarie fan. I loved Eddie Hamilton as an editor anyway, and I knew he was doing it because I've been following his career since like Kick-Ass. And I actually was able to have when I was like 19, I had like a small back and forth email conversation with Eddie about like potentially, when I was really trying to maybe be an editor before I knew that I wanted to have more control and be a director.
Right.
I was like having a small back and forth with him, so I was always a fan of his work and followed him everywhere and thought he did amazing stuff. And then instantly like became a Macquarie fan, and just everything in that film blew me away. Like I think it's pretty much a perfect action movie. And then when I saw Fallout again, like I was like, holy crap, this is just above and beyond anything that's happening at the moment in the action genre. But my reservations about Fallout the first time I saw it was that I thought the script was a bit like all over the place, and things were introduced and then left, and then I didn't know why things were being picked back up at the end, and then I watched it again and was like, that doesn't matter. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't care because he doesn't care, and it's not about that. And I've like got this complete obsession now with Mission Impossible Fallout since I've been able to watch it from the position I think that it is intended, which is don't worry, just go with it. Like, it's fun, have a good time.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you see it in IMAX?
Yeah, I saw it at the premiere in the UK.
Oh, wow.
And I saw it at the BFI IMAX, which is the biggest screen in the UK, I believe, which is probably like nothing in America. But yeah, I was just back row, like huge screen. Like, they came out and did like a Q&A beforehand, which was really fun. And then just
They being who was there?
they being and then Rebecca Ferguson was sat in front of me, which was bizarre,
Oh,
and
wow.
Simon Pegg was in the audience as well, and it was just very bizarre. But yeah, Macquarie was there, Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, and potentially somebody else, but those were Henry Cavill was there.
Mustache or no?
That's a good question. It's a good question. I can't remember. I think also Vanessa Kirby was there. It was like
I mean, it helps when
it was the premiere.
90% of the crew is British.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
You shot it there. Yeah.
So it was like, oh yeah, that's on tonight. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll pop down. Yeah, so it was fun to watch it with them and for them to, because premieres people don't usually stay, like especially not in the UK. I don't know if they do here. I'm sure they do when it's like at the Chinese theatre or something. But usually they come in, they say hello, do a little speech, please enjoy the film, and then they leave. And there's an after party somewhere that nobody's invited to.
Right.
But they stayed and watched it, and I was like, that means something to me. Like because I've been to a lot of these events, and I know the way that it works, and so to have somebody like stay for it, I was like, that must mean something. Like, especially because they've definitely seen it before.
Yeah.
So that's,
Although probably not too many times because they finished it like very close to when they
Right.
were premiering it.
totally.
Yeah, I don't think mine might have not even had finished credits or something when I saw the
Really?
critic screening. Yeah, we were disappointed that we couldn't see it together because Charles was out of town.
Yeah, I was shooting up in Oregon, so
We're not going to make that
didn't-
mistake this time.
no.
Clear the diaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. God.
Like a whole
Nothing is more important.
How many times did you see it
in the
theaters?
cinema.
And then also total.
Well, I can't remember how many times I've seen Fallout now. Like it's my
A lot.
Yeah, it's
Double digits?
It's I think at least 10.
Yeah.
At least 10 times. I think I'm pretty sure I saw it in the cinema like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Just because it was so like you had to see it. Like the thing that I loved about it, seeing it in IMAX, was that I didn't care that the style of shooting changed when they went into the helicopter.
Right.
Because it immediately became like we were watching a nature documentary. It was like they'd set up cameras that didn't move; they were just locked in place, and it just felt like, holy, this is really happening right now. And so that was the most engaging thing to see on a screen like that. It was like seeing Dunkirk in IMAX as well. Like you can't watch Dunkirk anywhere else. So I saw Dunkirk 3 times in the cinema as well because I was like, I'm never gonna watch this again. I'm not going to watch this on my TV. Like
Right.
you have to see it here. So yeah, how many times did you guys see it in the
Fallout?
cinema? Yeah.
I could probably look at my movie log and find out.
I think we saw it. We saw it at least
We-
5 times. We just saw it in 35 millimeter.
Oh wow.
One of 2 prints that were at the Vista actually, where,
Oh,
where
really?
you just watched Marriage Story. Yeah.
We have a log that we have that's a Google. It's a very dorky thing, a Google Doc.
Yeah,
thing
sure.
That logs
I
every
have-
movie that we've seen.
It's
So-
like
I don't
it's
do it for every time I've seen a movie, but I have like a notes
Yeah.
on my phone for what star rating I give every
Right.
movie I see that year because I'm a dork.
Right. I know. I saw it. The screening was at the fake IMAX here. Then I saw it.
What's
in
a
real
fake
IMAX?
IMAX? Fimax.
It's we call it Limax. It's
Okay.
not exactly.
Limax is bad.
It's not the same dimensions as a real IMAX screen. They like take out the first 3 rows. They beef up the sound system. But it's not.
Well, the thing is that originally the Limax was more egregious because it was digital when the IMAX was still film.
Yeah.
So that was the Limax. To me, I don't think the Limax is as big of a deal now because all IMAX is digital now.
Except for
City Walk. Is City Walk still film?
Yeah, they have a 70 millimeter.
Because I thought they do IMAX with laser. Isn't that what it
That's
says?
what it's most of the time. But that's where they did Dark
They
Knight
do-
recently.
they still
at
do
70
film.
millimeter and
Oh,
stuff,
very
yeah.
nice.
So I saw their I don't know if it was 70 millimeter there, but it was real IMAX, which was amazing. Then I saw it just at a regular theater, and then we saw it in 35. You might have seen it more in the theater than I have.
I must
I'm-
admit,
I'm gonna count it up right now.
Charles
as we
likes to
talk.
sneak off by himself and see movies, which I cannot do.
Really?
I
do
don't want to
all
get in the
time.
middle of your little spat that you're gonna
No,
have.
that's fine.
He likes to sneak off and see movies without me sometimes.
I know, he does it. I just look on the log the next day and I say, oh, there he was.
I must
Yep.
admit that, like, even though I'm all for the revolution of digital, I think that it has a lot of benefits. Seeing a movie in the cinema on film, I think there is nothing that compares to it. To me, it just feels so different. It feels almost like the film already existed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like you're seeing it with all the scratches and the texture on it,
Yeah.
and it feels like you have just missed this film and they're playing it today, and you just happen to be lucky enough to be here to see it.
Yes.
It's a very, it's a very romantic.
Rich. Yeah.
When it's done right, there's nothing better.
Yeah.
I will say
But
that
it
when
also
we saw
can
it,
be done wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw Ferris Bueller's Day Off on film, and the end. It was good the whole way through. But the ending, you know, when he's like in the bed and he puts his hands behind his head and he
Yeah.
goes, "Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop to look around once in a while. You could miss it." And then it freeze frames like John Hughes movies all do, and then it's credits. What happened was he went, "Life moves pretty fast," and then the credits were there, and I was like, "Oh my god!" They just missed the ending.
Just ruining.
I hope it wasn't someone's
I
first
know,
time seeing this
I
movie.
know. Ruining countless yearbook quotes.
Yeah. When we saw Fallout, we saw actually on 35 at the Vista earlier this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of it just didn't.
It didn't look good.
It didn't look right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know what was up with the projection or what, but it just it actually looked too dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my problem when I first saw it. When I first saw Fallout, I was like, it was so, like, because it was such a different visual look to
Yeah.
Rogue Nation.
Well, they have no fill light on the other sides of people's faces, so it gets real dark. But it was beyond that. It was like there just wasn't detail in any of the blacks, and it was just like the blacks were really crushed, and I don't know what happened.
Even all the shorting the frame that they do in Fallout,
Yeah.
like all that sort of stuff was like really, it felt very different
Yeah.
to the not bad, but I think I just was processing how different the style was from Rogue Nation too much the first time I saw it. But now I absolutely love the way that Fallout is shot. I think that it's inspired me greatly in terms of my own filmmaking. I love the shorting the frame thing now. Like, I liked it before, and I'd seen it in obviously things like Mr. Robot, and Donald Glover's show Atlanta does it quite a lot and does it very well. But then seeing it on that scale and seeing how different and cinematic it can make stuff feel, I don't know, there was something about it that like really drew me in.
Yeah, I mean, I think McQuarrie's sort of resolution to make it as different as he could from Rogue Nation, especially because he admits that he was kind of taking the baton of Ghost Protocol and turning that around. Because
that's the same DOP, isn't it?
Same DOP, the wonderful
Robert Elswit,
who we've had on the show.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've listened to those episodes.
I have.
He's wonderful, and one of my favorite cinematographers ever.
I actually didn't realise that he shot Tomorrow Never Dies, though. That was something I learned from your podcast.
Yeah.
One of the few. We are obsessed with the Bond Mission Impossible crossover.
Because that's what I think I loved about Rogue Nation, actually, is I think it felt like a Bond movie.
Yeah, we've had that. One of our Patreon followers talks about how he says it's like the best Bond film.
Yeah. I think it's because the opera house, which I think is the best sequence in it, and only by a bit, because they're all so good and so different as well. Such different sequences all in that film. But that opera sequence feels like a Bond sequence, and we've seen Bond do stuff like that before in like Quantum of Solace, and I'm sure other Bond movies have taken place in opera sequences as well that I'm just forgetting. But I think that just that feeling, it's like Inception as well. Inception feels like a Bond movie.
Right.
Yes.
It's that tone that they strike that for me, as I grew up in adoring James Bond movies and just had them all.
Me too.
I had them all taped off the telly. I'd record them all on VHS, and so I'd have to fast forward through all the adverts every single time. That was my childhood was doing that.
Yeah.
And so then any movie that reminds me of that, I'm immediately like, I'm butter. I'm all yours.
Yeah. I'd love to see Nolan do a Bond movie.
Good God. Yes. Yeah.
It seems like they were close to doing it. I wonder if they're already planning to let him do the next one. Like he'll launch the next Bond.
He wants a new Bond.
Yeah, he wants to start his own Bond.
100%. Yeah. He would be like, I'll do it, because he would want to, obviously. But I reckon his rules would be, I do it my way and however I want to do it, and I cast who I want to cast, and I think it will be more an independent, like almost the way that Casino Royale feels actually, like it almost like a one that fits outside of it, outside of the sequence.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Like kind of a reboot.
Yeah, well, I want to see if they can, because I feel like the bar has been set so high by Mission Impossible. It'll be interesting to see the next James Bond coming out after Fallout, and see
I find all that
top
fascinating.
Yeah,
because Bond in its modern iteration has been responding to other movies. Like,
well, I mean,
they kind of always
done
have
that,
right?
Yeah, which is so. Moonraker was like Star Wars. And I find that fascinating that like they did so well with Casino Royale as like, this is what we're doing now. And everyone went, brilliant. And, Daniel Craig got nominated for a BAFTA for it, which no Bond has ever been nominated for an acting award before. And then they feel like they panicked and they said, right, we're going to make it like Bourne. And then when that didn't work, Sam Mendes made it like The Dark Knight. And that did work and is brilliant. And then Spectre felt like it was going, well, that did really well. Let's do that again. Yeah. And it didn't work. And so now I'm wondering, will the new Bond be a response to something like Mission Impossible, the No Time to Die?
Right.
Because I think you're right. I absolutely think that Rogue Nation, and especially Fallout, because it did so well with audiences as well, has set the bar for espionage movies.
Yeah.
Especially the filmmaking in it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's interesting that they've got Cary Fukunaga, who I think is a very interesting director. Like, the stuff that he did in True Detective is, if he gets some of that style into a Bond movie, I'll be very, very happy.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I would also be very surprised because it feels like Eon is a tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
But I mean, they got to know what they were getting when they hired him. We're big
also
Danny Boyle fans, so we were very sad.
I was very disappointed that he wasn't
really
doing
wanted
it.
to see
And
that.
I wanted to see what John Hodge was going to do with that screenplay too.
But it sounds like that exactly what happened with them was that they didn't have enough control.
Yeah.
Something they didn't like about the script, and they didn't.
Well, I heard it came down to casting the villain. They wanted to cast an Arab guy as the bad guy.
Okay.
And they were like,
I've also got to believe that Phoebe Waller-Bridge being involved in No Time to Die feels a little bit like Daniel Craig and Rachel Weisz, his wife, have watched Fleabag and gone, I want that person to do what they've done.
At this point,
there.
it seems like Craig has quite a bit of pull.
Yes.
Like
maybe more than any other
totally.
Bond has ever had.
Yeah.
And maybe to
and it's very similar.
To not a good point.
It's very similar to the Tom Cruise situation that like Cruise
Right.
seems to have such an influence over.
Yeah.
But
over
no
Mission.
offense to Daniel Craig, who I think is great. Cruise has been around for an incredibly long time, and I think understands filmmaking more than any other movie star.
Totally. I love hearing him talk about how he performs for the camera.
Yeah.
The way he moves his eyes, or the way that he, whatever he does, he's doing it with the edit in his head.
Yeah.
And I love even more that when I'm watching him on screen, I can't see him doing that because it's a magic trick. Yeah. And he makes me believe in the magic trick. Yeah. And that is something.
And he also seems to inspire every single person on set. Even to the point where, I don't know if you listen to our Paul Hirsch episodes, but he was even saying, like, things to Paul Hirsch that he picked up on and things like that. I mean, it's just amazing how his level of commitment and also his level of knowledge and expertise, which I'm not sure Daniel Craig has. He seems like a lovely person.
But we just don't have the, he
doesn't have the
knowledge.
Years.
Yeah. I don't know if I've seen any demonstration that he knows best when it comes to how a film should work or how a set should run or how a story should play out.
Right.
But we will see when we see No Time to Die.
You also look at just the list of directors that Tom Cruise has worked with.
Yeah.
Since the early 80s, and it's just the most insane list of Oscar winners.
I also know that Tom Cruise...
insane names who should have won Oscars. Yeah. It's just unbelievable the number of directors that he's worked with.
And Cruise goes into the edits and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know many actors that do that.
Yeah.
I
gotta imagine he's learned a lot from all of those different people,
without
Kubrick, Coppola, Scorsese. I mean, it's just
and the fact that he did
name director and he's worked with them, PTA.
The fact that he did though the Kubrick film, the fact that he took, I think I saw somebody talking about this recently. I can't remember who it was, but the idea that he took out 3 years of his life, at like the height of his movie stardom, to do a Kubrick movie, is like he just gave up those prime years to one guy, which I think just tells you where his priorities are, which is I want to make great stuff. I don't care about like every year being able to be in the biggest movie of the year as long as I'm working with incredible people who know this craft better than anybody.
Right.
And what leads me to sort of, I guess in a way, to a question I have for you guys, because this is like a filmmaking podcast and stuff, what stuff in Mission Impossible stands out to you like as the high level of filmmaking that it is?
Well, that's a great question.
Thank you. I
think we're both huge De Palma fans.
Yeah.
And the first movie is what got us obsessed with this. Mm-hmm. And I think Brian De Palma is one of the great filmmakers. I mean, stuff that Corey talks about all the time is the visual filmmaking, doing stuff without having to rely on dialogue. That's De Palma. And those sequences in the first movie, I mean, the Langley sequence,
of course,
is a sequence that still gets referenced to this day in our everyday lives in parodies and things.
I remember seeing
the filmmaking in that is so masterful, and to have not only not dialogue but not music either.
Yeah,
and that is just pure visual suspense.
Yep.
I mean, it's just one of the greatest sequences I've ever seen in anything.
I think I saw parodies of that before I saw the actual thing.
Yeah.
I think the first time I saw it was it parodied in a Casper movie. I can't remember if it was the first one or one of the other Casper movies.
We did a whole episode about parodies, but I don't think we talked about Casper.
I don't know.
There is absolutely a bit where somebody's like bead of sweat, and they're not supposed to be touching something. I can't remember what it was. I'll have to look at it after this, and I'll let you know. But
well, while you're in town, if you see there's like an AT&T truck or whatever that's around that has a person dangling, doing the thing right off the ground,
installing cable or something.
They're still out there. I mean,
totally. Yeah, I mean that is the icon in Mission Impossible, and I'm kind of sad that they don't reference it anymore, and I think it's a good thing ultimately to like let that sort of stuff go,
to move on from it.
I think but like
so.
Up until no, they didn't do it in Rogue Nation, did they? No.
We kind of want to ask McCory about it. I don't know why we didn't when we talked to him, but we will next
about
time.
the water
but
tank.
Going into the water in Rogue Nation is sort of it, and then him doing the Halo jump is also sort of it.
Yes,
but I don't know
it's a similar.
Yeah, he even gets hung up, at the end of the Halo jump.
Yeah.
But it might not be intended.
It probably isn't. It's probably just like us filling in a pattern,
right?
Because we want to see it.
Yeah, and I think the Burj too is something that we
the Burj is that the whole
that's
sequence
just
in Dubai. But in particular, the hanging off the side of the building and everything. It's
and for that to be Bird's first live action, working with such an amazing crew, and McCory being in that hotel room, printing out pages of dialogue. The whole thing is the making of that sequence was a Mission Impossible.
Yes, which I love.
Yeah. Well, that's the fun thing too that we realized when we were going back to watch the old show and everything. So much of Mission Impossible from the old show and even in the movies is Mission Impossible is kind of about filmmaking.
Totally. Everything. I think Ocean's 11 is about filmmaking.
Yeah.
Any sort of heist crime movie where people are coming together to do a one last job. Anything like that. I think it's about filmmaking.
You're putting on a show and you're doing a magic trick. It's the same thing. It's all kind of feels
which is why I think it's so easy for filmmakers to sort of to relate to that and to tell those stories.
Yeah. And so much of it in the Mission Impossible movies in particular is acting. The characters are acting, they're having to put on a performance and all this stuff. So it definitely feels like it's filmmaking, which is all I think very interesting to us. And just to continue to answer your question about this, cinematic thing, it's just Fallout has so many sequences that are just breathtaking. And
is there any specifics that, for you as a director, that you've looked at and gone, oh, I'm taking that, or even as a lesson, or just something you see and you go, and the behind the scenes of it, and it's basically like learning another magic trick, isn't it? It's like I've got another tool to put in my belt.
Well, I don't know if I have an answer. I have to think about that. I know one thing that I think I've talked to you about this. I know I've talked to other friends about this, but when filmmakers do this thing in recent years where they do fake one-ers, where they stitch shots together in ways that you see the stitches, and to me those drive me nuts.
Me too.
Revenant, I was not a huge fan of.
Sure.
It's a good movie, sure, but Revenant was full of moments like that where it was you could just cut. It's okay to cut,
Which is why it'd be interesting to see 1917.
Yes, I'm curious to see that. Especially because it's all one shot, right?
Yeah, it is.
But real time.
And especially because it's Deakins.
It is, so I'm wondering if maybe they'll be more careful with those stitches, I hope.
Yeah.
But some of them in Birdman and in Revenant really annoyed me.
Yeah.
It was just this is such an awful stitch, and it really takes me out of the movie. But I will say this about the Halo jump. There's 2 stitches in that shot, that quote-unquote shot, and they are seamless to me. I know them now, and I know I've watched it enough times, but first time watching it, did not see them, and I'm in awe of those kind of things, when people can pull that kind of magic trick, and it works.
Yes.
Maybe it works for other people with movies like Revenant and stuff like that, but those kind of things.
I don't remember Revenant bothering me, and Birdman as well. I'm okay with, because I think Birdman's so good. But I know what you mean, the bits when they go through from interior to exterior, and they go through a moment of black, and it's just that. Those are the ones where, and the whip pans that are so obvious.
Right.
That to me, just as a filmmaker, it's like somebody's doing a magic trick that shocks an average audience member. And for me, I'm you're being too showy. I know how you do that. So,
and it's Rope is one of my favorite movies ever, the Hitchcock movie, and it doesn't bother me in that at all because it was 1948 and they had only 10-minute reels, and so he had to stitch it together that way. And some of those stitches even for 1948 are awesome. Some of them are not as good as others. But
I want to confess something on this podcast, and I think it's the place to do it. Is that when I saw the Halo jump, I was mildly disappointed by it.
Really?
Yeah. It's the same reason everybody else is, but that initial moment when he jumps out of the plane is absolutely breathtaking. I remember watching it and jolting in my seat and leaning back to try and get further away from the screen because it was so, I couldn't believe it was really happening. And then it's when I start seeing CGI sky. I was like, no, because now what's the point?
They had to replace all the ground.
Exactly, which I get it. Practically, you have to do it.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't help but no, you went to all this trouble, and now most people are going to think that you didn't do it. and that's a shame. I think.
Right.
I think that there's, and even actually, to be honest, further than that. And this is where it comes into being more of like a storyteller than the spectacle of the filmmaking, which I think is, it still has merit, obviously. But I was like, okay, so they have to jump out of a plane to get into a party? Okay. Like I was like, I wish I was feeling more tense. I wish I was feeling like they have no other choice than to do it this way. I wish that the surrounding story of why they had to do that halo jump had me more invested, but instead it felt like it was more of a spectacle thing, which now I don't care because I know exactly what I'm getting from it now, and there's no point in not enjoying something for what it is if you can. But I still couldn't help.
I think like first viewings, you can get caught up
Totally.
on logic.
Totally.
I forget who was talking about Vertigo recently. It was that Scorsese or somebody was saying about Vertigo and how they didn't like it the first time they saw it.
Oh, really?
Or you know what? It was James Gray on Leonard Maltin's podcast. It was great. He was talking about Vertigo and like first time he saw this doesn't make any sense. What is this? Why is he doing this? And all this stuff. But then it's just about the feeling of it and like, you get over those logic hangups. I feel the same way. Yeah.
First time I saw Lost in Translation, I was like, that was boring. But then I watched it for what it was supposed to be and enjoyed the mood of it and enjoyed just spending time there and very different obviously from Mission Impossible, but the same feeling on the first time of being like, why do people like this? But yeah, going back to the question I asked you about what did you learn, as a filmmaker and stuff when you saw something in one of the Mission Impossible movies. For me, going back to that opera sequence in Rogue Nation, that to me was all about geography and understanding like how important it is. Like I think I already knew that, but it wasn't until I saw that I was like, oh, this really, like, I understand exactly what's going on here. It feels like he's laid all of the pieces out so carefully and has so subtly let me know this is here, that's there, this person can do that, that person can't. Like, it's lots of little moments like that are threaded through in this entertaining suspense build-up to solve the puzzle.
Right.
And in the moment, I remember watching it being like, I don't know what he's going to do. And when he shoots the minister, the chancellor, that guy, when he shoots him in the shoulder, I was like, brilliant. Like it was almost like hands thrown in the sky, sort of success, sort of like I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And I think that was all possible because of the geography. And I've taken that forward and been like, this is super, super important.
Yeah.
Not that I've had a chance yet on that scale, obviously, to implement that lesson that I learned.
Yeah.
But holy crap.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the most impressive pieces of filmmaking that I've seen in recent cinema.
Yeah, I mean, that whole sequence is incredible.
Yeah.
I think for me, geography, and we've both been huge fans of John McTiernan forever. And he's like my favorite director. He did Die Hard and Predator and Hunt for October, and he always
and Macquarie calls that the greatest action movie ever made, right? That's Macquarie's like.
Which one does he
Die
say?
Hard.
Oh, does he? Okay, yeah. I mean, that's right.
Let me just check my notes on that. Yeah.
I've studied McTiernan so much, his work, and then also he has commentaries for a lot of his movies, and just listening to him talk about that geography is so important to him. So I've always. So for me, it was for the opera. It was more of like an appreciation of like, oh, yep, this is perfect, like the way it's done.
Gotcha.
I wasn't. I'm trying to think of something that I learned from.
Have you learned nothing?
I've learned nothing. I've learned nothing. It's really the truth.
Macquarie has nothing to teach
but
you.
Macquarie has so much to teach from his. I mean, everything that he talks about.
Just look at his Twitter.
It's
just
everything.
Nuggets.
I think the thing that I've really taken to heart, what he's talked about recently, is the information versus emotion, and that information is the death of emotion.
Yeah.
And just trying to find that balance of exposition and like when do you need it and when can you get, because like I think in setting it out, that's the thing, that's the great thing about Mission Impossible, and they talked about this on the old show too. In the old show, it was almost like they said they could skip an act. Like in old TV shows, the first act was all about setting up the story, but like they basically could do that with just the mission briefing. And like even in Fallout, the mission briefing is like,
here's the film you're about to see.
It's extraordinarily long, the mission briefing, but you get it all out and you just like, I think what what Macquarie referred to it as is like broccolis.
Yeah, eat your veggies. Eat your
veggies,
and then you can enjoy.
Then you can have, you don't want to have broccoli in your dessert. Mm-hmm. So you can't have exposition in the middle of an action sequence. Mm-hmm.
And
But I also think he downplays it a little bit. I think he downplays how good he is at like subtly getting, because I think sometimes he's blunt about it. Obviously, we can see that in the mission briefing. But I also think that every time he does an action sequence, he's telling you a story still and giving you information that you need, even like subconsciously. And I think he's downplaying how good maybe he's not even aware of how good he is.
Which I think the Ethan Hunt character, especially since Ghost Protocol his character has come out in the action sequences, and that's where you learn a little bit more about who he is and what his personality is. And people who claim that Ethan Hunt is this kind of like blank cipher is just completely off base.
Especially from 4, 5, 6. Like we now know who Ethan Hunt is.
Yes,
as a man, as an agent, as a human being, as a teammate.
You've had Patrick Willems on your podcast.
Yeah,
I think
it's a great video. Yeah.
His theory about who Ethan Hunt is, I think, is like spot on.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting fourth wall breaking relationship with the audience.
There's no question that Tom Cruise gives as much as he can to each performance. I mean, to the point that he's putting himself in mortal danger. Each time he's doing these
and
things.
his ankle in mortal danger.
It's amazing, and it's an amazing feat. And if he's only going to be doing these movies, I'm sure it's very important for him to get these things out in some way through the character. So I think that Top Gun will be really interesting too, as like a kind of older statesman, ushering in a new batch of recruits and what that's going to be like. And I think that the next 2 Mission Impossibles are going to be fascinating, because I'm sure he's going to be dealing with these things. Because, I mean, as much as these are fictional representations, they're little time capsules about where he is in his life. And, he was in love when he did 3, and that's a huge love story. And, I mean, it's a really fascinating kind of progression. And
I'm sure as well it's not even massively obvious to Cruise when he's doing it.
Right.
I'm sure, I've definitely had those experiences on a smaller scale of looking back at something that I've made and going, oh, I was telling a story about that thing that was happening in my life, but I didn't even know that when I did it. And I'm sure that he's looking back and it feels like an appropriate sort of thing that he did when that stuff was happening in his life.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how 7 and 8 reflect him coming to potentially like a new stage of his career.
Right. Or a conclusion of a stage of his career.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Like the not to be too speculative about what's going to happen. But it almost puts me in mind of what Martin Scorsese has done with The Irishman, which feels a little bit like a response to his own
career.
Irishman is very different from Goodfellas and Casino and Departed. Like
it almost feels like a response to them.
Yeah.
And I think that there's definitely an opportunity for the new Mission Impossible films to do a similar thing, and for Cruise to have a similar response to. And I'm putting this to bed in a very elegant way, and almost wondering what comes after that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm all for whatever that is.
Yeah.
I know. I hope they don't kill him off or something.
Yeah. It's an interesting story though, because I think that because we know they're doing a back-to-back thing, the tension is higher.
Yeah.
Knowing that Cruise is older and whatever else, that they're going to play with the idea that like, are we going to kill him? I think that Macquarie is smart enough to know that we're already thinking that. Do you know what I mean? Like you're going into the Rise of Skywalker the same way. Like I don't know who's gonna fucking die. Like who's gonna make it? And there's an inherent same with Endgame. Like there's an inherent tension because you're aware of the context that this is potentially the last ones. That you don't know who's gonna what's gonna conclude, what's not. So there's already that stuff bubbling there, and they're absolutely gonna play with that. I think.
Yeah.
It's going to be fascinating. There's a lot of dimensions to these new ones that are going to be really interesting. What a guy.
Yeah.
What a guy.
He is great.
He's great.
I need to watch some of his work.
Yeah, he's a filmmaker.
I haven't seen much of his work, so I need to dive into that more, and I want to listen to his podcast too.
But what if this young whippersnapper is coming for your job?
It's true. He is coming for my job.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
And speaking of my job, my movie is out today. It's called A Nasty Piece of Work. It is on Hulu as part of the Into the Dark series.
Blumhouse production.
It's a Blumhouse Hulu co-production. And every month they do a holiday-themed thriller or horror movie, and this one's a thriller, dark comedy. What would you saw a rough cut of it? What would you
Yeah,
call
I would
it?
say it's a dark comedy. The black, what do you call it? A Black Christmas comedy, sort of.
Yeah, it's definitely a very dark comedy.
Yes.
I mean, it gets bloody.
It does, but you got great actors in it.
Yeah, we had some really wonderful actors. Julian Sands is in it, which is cool, and some other actors that I really have always admired that I was really happy to get on there.
One of the girls from Westworld.
Yes, Angela Serafian.
Yeah.
And Dustin Milligan, who is on Schitt's Creek, and I've loved him ever since he was in Mike Judge's movie Extract. But he's on Schitt's Creek if you watch that show, which is a fantastic show. And Kyle Howard, who I've always loved. He's been in TV shows and movies forever, I think since Orange County. And actually, he was in that movie House Arrest when we were kids. Do you ever see that movie?
Oh, yes.
Where he like kidnaps his parents who are getting a divorce. I think it's Jamie Lee Curtis and Kevin Pollak. Anyway, he's very likable, and I think he's a unbelievable actor.
Yeah.
Like, he's just another wonderful actor we had in the movie was Molly Hagan, who is the wife in Election. Mm-hmm. She's amazing, and the way she described Kyle Howard is that he's nails. Like, he's just on like every single take, just nails it. Just like fucking awesome. So it was really cool working with all these, just wonderful cast.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the final version.
Yeah, I think you'll like it.
I'm a big fan of the series, so
Yeah.
So, do we have anything to amend on this episode or anything?
No, I don't think so. Okay. But we'll just come back next week for part 2, and in 2 weeks we've got Oscar-winning editor Paul Hirsch coming back.
Oh yeah,
and we had a wonderful talk with him.
He couldn't believe we were there. We couldn't believe we were there. It was great.
He is so great.
Yeah.
It was a really awesome talk because we both read his book, and then just were able to ask so many more questions and get some more answers about Mission Impossible, but also we really dug into John Hughes and some other things. So excited to share that interview with you all. I think you're really going to love it. And
do we have anyone to thank?
Yes, we want to thank Jacob from Holland.
Love him.
Thank you, Jacob. And as always, this episode is brought to you by Jeremy Dillon. And these guys help us out on Patreon. And if you could help us out on Patreon, we would love you for it. It's patreon.com/LightTheFuse.
Yeah.
And we've got commentaries for all 6 Mission Impossible movies. We've got a lot of bonus episodes, and we're going to have more bonus episodes coming soon. I just moved closer to you.
Yes, we're going to have more content all the time.
I'm just 9 minutes away from you now, which is so much better than the 45 that it used to take.
Yes.
So I'll be able to drop by. We're going to do more bonus episodes more often. We're going to do a Best of the Year bonus episode on Patreon. So we'll do each of our top 10 lists. We're surprising each other with what our top 10 lists are.
And we're gonna sort of do an interactive thing where we're gonna have a follow-up Skype call with people to talk about that.
Yes, so
episode.
If you're at a higher level of the Patreon, then you join our monthly Skype chat, and then we're going to discuss that and hear other people's top 10 lists and stuff like that. It's fun time. We really appreciate everybody who helps us out on Patreon. Every dollar counts. So even if you can't sign up for the bonus content, you just give us $1 a month. That's great. Or if you want to get some swag, that supports us as well. Because any of the shirts you buy, or magnets, or stickers, or whatever, that's on our TeePublic page, which you can find linked from our website, which is www.lightthefusepodcast.com.
Yeah.
And we tweet stuff, and that TeePublic they do sales all the time, so I'm sure they'll have a bunch leading up to Christmas. Some great Christmas gifts you could get in there. We have Light the Fuse shirts now. We have so many Light the Fuse shirts. Yeah. Great designs. But if you can't spend money, you can still help us out by subscribing, liking, rating, reviewing, and just telling people about this podcast. Just if you think that someone will enjoy it, tell them about it, and it'll help us out a lot. So yes. Spread the word. Spread the word. And we'll be back next week with Jack Howard Part 2. Yep. Thank you. Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcasts@gmail.com. If you'd like to watch the original Mission Impossible television show, all 7 seasons are currently available to stream on Amazon Prime. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.